Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruhu wa nu'minu bihi wa natawakkal alayhi wa na'udhu billahi min shururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina. Man yahdihillahu fala mudilla lahu wa man yudlilhu fala hadiya lahu. Wa nashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa nashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri. ثانية يفقهوا قولي بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So today we're continuing our stories of Rumi, stories for young adults from the Mathnavi. And if you have been listening to the stories, and sometimes the stories can seem long and we like going through the whole story, but what I'm finding is that they are wise stories. They have a lot of wisdom in them. So during the week I tend to like think back onto why that person did this, or why was it happening like this. So these stories are very valuable, because if you listen to the story and also kind of learn what the morals of the story are, they'll stay with you for a very long time, inshallah. So Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Today we're going to do the story of the wise man and the fool. So once a man who had a great portion of knowledge and experience, but few of the things of the world, was traveling on foot from city to city. On the road he came upon an Arab riding astride two large sacks on the back of a camel. As the Arab rode, he sang. The man on foot thought to himself, even though I am on foot and exhausted, and the Arab is riding a camel and in good humor, I have at least found a fellow traveler. I'll be able to talk with him and pass the time faster. I'll make my long journey shorter with conversation and stories. Now, I want to pause for a moment, and I want us to think about how people used to travel in the past, that they would go from country to country, not just town to town, but sometimes they would travel through countries on foot and on camels and sometimes horses. So imagine that traveling in those days was very different from how we are living in the time of speed. We're living in a time when travel is very fast. Like you can have breakfast in one place and you could be on the other side of the world before the next morning, before the next breakfast. That means you could be literally have gone around the world and be in the next in the other place for your next day's breakfast. Subhanallah. So we are traveling at the speed of, you could say, like not light, but with very speed of Sulaiman alayhi salam's time. With his miracles, they used to travel like that. So Sulaiman alayhi salam could command the wind to go wherever he wanted it to. So basically they could travel from one place to another as fast as we are doing now on aeroplanes, but they could do that on the wind. And we also travel with the wind patterns. Now, if you look at it, the way we travel, if you go through certain areas of the sky, you can go faster towards one place, but it will take longer coming back. So subhanallah, these are all miracles that we're living right now. So these are the contrasts. So we're talking about a time when people used to travel on camels and they would take days and months to get to a place. And remember, they were traveling by day and then they'd rest at night. They'd put the tents up and maybe have something to eat and then sleep. And then in the morning they set off again before it got very hot. So they were people who lived in lots of different ways. So it's important to think about these things, that people didn't always live the way that we live, and they don't enjoy the luxuries that we are living through. We have a lot to be grateful for. So these two travelers, they're traveling, and there's one on a camel, and the other one he's on foot, and he's saying, "I'm so exhausted, but I found somebody to travel with. So when he reached the camel rider, he greeted him with salam and said, I'm happy to meet you. I became very happy when I saw you. I was getting bored with loneliness, not to speak of the fatigue from trudging on foot. We'll be able to chat together for as long as we're traveling the same road. I was singing out of loneliness too, said the rider. It's the same whether you're on foot or riding. In fact, travel is better on foot. When you don't have a camel, you don't have to worry about it. What you don't have will never get sick or stolen or run away. Even the poet says, the person who doesn't have a donkey is comfortable. He doesn't have to concern himself about his hay or oats. What can I say? Asked the walker. I don't think that's right. If a person has something to carry but doesn't have a donkey, why then he has to carry it on his own shoulders. If the road is long, he makes his feet sore. But, well, I really don't dislike walking. When I remember that I am bearing the burden of my own body, I feel happy. But if I were riding a camel, I might suppose that the animal beneath me was not happy with me. The camel rider laughed. That's something. People who don't have camels think like that. God created camels to carry loads and eat thorns. If you don't ride one, someone else will. The man on foot said, in any case, you have a good camel. God forgive you. It looks as though his load is very heavy. What have you got in those sacks? One of them is full of wheat I'll bring home from the fields, answered the rider. The other is full of sand and gravel. The walker was astonished. What did you say? Full of sand and gravel? Why are you taking that home? Can't you find it in the city? I'm not carrying the sand and gravel to use it, said the rider. I only had enough wheat to fill one of the sacks. I couldn't load just one on one side of the beast, so I filled the other with sand and gravel to balance the load. Then, too, I could also sit on the load. Upon hearing this, the man on foot broke into laughter. What a marvelous arrangement you have made. Listen, brother, instead of doing that, it would have been better if you had divided the wheat into two parts and put a half in each of the sacks. Then you'll have a balanced load on both sides of the camel, and you still be able to ride on it. The load would be lighter for the camel and easier to put on and take off. The camel riding Arab was an ordinary fellow and not too smart. Well done, bravo. I was trying to figure out how to do it, but I couldn't. It's obvious that you are a very intelligent, wise, and great man. I don't know, said the other. No, it was pretty simple, really. The rider felt sorry for the man on foot and said to himself, it would be better if I let this wise man ride. Suddenly a thought occurred to him, and he asked the walker, well, O great wise man, tell me the truth. Who are you? With such intelligence and understanding, you must be a vizier at least, or a deputy, a sultan, or a prince. You must be something big. You must be a very important man. No, said the other. I'm just an ordinary man like everyone else, and I'm not that learned. Look at the shape I'm in. My clothes are ordinary, like those of most folks. That can't be true, protested the rider. With your brains, you must have a lot of money to enjoy and to make you happy and carefree so that you can solve the problems of wheat so easily. As it happens, replied the walker, I haven't got anything at all in the world. While I am now accompanying you, I haven't the faintest idea where I'll work tomorrow or what I'll eat. Naturally, you have some shop or business, the camel rider went on. So if you don't have cash, you have a lot of goods. What's the difference? I mean, a learned man should have wealth and be fortunate. There was a poet who once said, whoever has knowledge has power. Nothing like that, said the walker. If I had a shop, I would be sitting in it and doing business, and I certainly wouldn't be walking in this desert. The rider nodded knowingly. It's plain you don't want to identify to be made known, sir. Perhaps you have herds of camels and cattle and flocks of sheep and are going after your shepherds and herders. Anyway, a smart and sharp man such as you must have a flourishing business. Look, brother, sighed the other, I don't have horses, I don't have camels, I don't have cattle, I don't have sheep, I don't have a shop or any money. I don't think I am unfortunate, but I simply don't have any worldly possessions. However, my body is strong and I work and I eat. I didn't find any work today, so I'm going to a nearby city to look for some. Of the understanding and intelligence that you're talking about, I have nothing, just a simple life. That's all there is to it. Then you are a lazy, good for nothing, a pauper, cried the rider. Here I am with a sack of wheat and a sack of sand. In spite of my illiteracy and lack of wits, I own dozens of camels, hundreds of sheep, and 50 cows. I own 2 farms, a granary. I have maids and servants. I have honor and esteem. I have shoes and clothes. I have 10 rooms full of household goods. When I go to a meeting, I am respected and saluted. I have a comfortable life. I am member of the City Reform Committee. In my house, I have a room full of books, which is the envy of the local mullah. I have gotten all of this through my dull wits. He continued contemptuously, Now you, who clever enough to know how to load wheat on a camel, what do you have? So what's the good of your intelligence, understanding and experience? If that is intelligence, nothing but imagination and trouble, then I want no part of it. As it happens, I need a laborer on one of my farms, but I'm afraid to hire the likes of you. Hurry up, get away from me. I'm afraid your misfortune will afflict me. Useless intelligence is bad luck. I'm going, said the man on foot. But with all that you said, in my opinion, you're a miserable, stupid fool. All the things that you have, you've bought with money while you're still adult. I would never want to be like you. So the man on foot left the man on the camel and went on his way. As it happened, the camel rider travelled some distance when he met up with 2 more men on camels. They were bandits, and they asked him what he had in his sacks. Just now there was a man with me who went that way, he answered. He said that I was a miserable fool. That's what I am, and whatever is in the loads is what it is. One of the bandits took out his knife and slit one of the sacks. It happened to be the one containing the sand and the gravel. As a result, the bandits beat him and then went away saying, What a strange, stupid fellow. The desert is full of sand and you load sand on your camel. But the Arab camel rider, whose sack of wheat had escaped the thieves by this chance, smiled happily. God bless my stupidity, he said to himself. If I hadn't loaded the sand and gravel, I would have lost the wheat. After this, people observed that the man would load even 100 camels with one sack of wheat and the other of sand. He wouldn't listen to anyone or take anyone's advice. Instead, he would say to those who laughed at his stupidity, I know something that you don't know. The poor man became a laughing stock, but in his heart he was satisfied that he knew something which they didn't know, and he had camels and farms and everything. The end. So this is a very interesting story, and it's talking about intelligence, and it's got many levels in it. And it's also, we mock people. We think that they are stupid because they don't see things the way that we see things, right? Or we think that they're not intelligent because they don't have the same kind of intelligence that we think we have. But people in the world have different kinds of intelligences. And not just people, but even cultures, right? People who belong to different cultures and different groups, they have different kind of intelligences, and they use it in different ways. So this brings us to ignorance, right? Because the flip side of intelligence is ignorance. That when we don't know something, we can judge it in a very wrong way, and we can be totally wrong. Yes. And we might know something that other people don't know, and other people might know something that we don't know. So we should be, number one, careful before we judge other people. And we, a lot of times, number two is we can't see the full picture, right? We do not have the full vision to see things in the world. Our perception and our vision is very limited. So before we make judgments about people and things, we should be careful, and we should try to see things from lots of different angles. So this is, even though on the surface, the man riding the camel, he was using his intelligence in a very different way, but in the end, it's what saved him. And also, this kind of intelligence had made him a very rich man. So people have different kinds of intelligences, and they will use it differently. Also, this also brings us to another level, that intelligence does not equate, right? It does not equate success in this life. Just because somebody is intelligent, doesn't mean they're going to be successful, and vice versa. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives everything differently to different people. So there might be a person, like, this is a very important point for young people today, because young people, we are conditioned in schools and in the educational system to think that if you use your intelligence in a certain way and you get a certain degree, then you earn a certain amount of money and you will be happy in life, right? That's basically the trajectory of what you're taught. So when you are taught like this, young people have a lot of anxiety. Like if you're going to school and college, especially if you're in high school, you have a lot of anxiety because you know you have to get into certain programs, and in order to get into the programs, you have to have certain grades and certain marks, and recommendations. So there's a lot of pressure on young people to do this, and because you think your whole life depends on it. But the reality of it is that there's many people in the world, and this is Allah's custom, that whatever He has written for you, that is what will reach you. You will only get that. So it doesn't matter how much you study in the world, or what kind of degrees you get, and which ladders you try to climb. At the end of the day, you will get what has been decreed for you. So when you know that, you should have peace of mind. You should have a serene mind. You should, and parents also, that you also, parents also need to be content, and they should have, this is a very big anxiety for parents. How will my children do? How much success will they have in the world? Will they be happy in the world? So we parents also need to calm down, and you need to know that the qadr belongs to, is from Allah, right? It's a domain of Allah, and it's from Allah. So whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put in the qadr of that child, of that person, that is what is going to happen. The risk is going to reach them. And so you can only, as parents, you can try your best, and you can make lots of du'as, right? And we have to look at it, again, we have to look at it with lots of different intelligences, because you might say, oh, if my child doesn't become a doctor, an engineer, a lawyer, how will they be happy? What if your child does become doctor, lawyer, engineer, and they're not happy? They have a miserable life. Yeah, they're never happy, and they maybe they have that status of being that thing, but they have a very miserable family life. What if that happens? Would you like that? No, we wouldn't like that as parents. So we, as parents, we need to look at things from a very wide perspective, right? We have to look at everything from, you have to look at your child, not just from the physical aspect, that what are they going to earn in the world, and what are they going to, what kind of a house will they live in, and how much money will they have. Yeah, this is all a risk. This is Allah is in charge of that. As parents, we have to look at our children, mentally, how stable are my children? Mentally, how much stability do they have? How much stability have we given to them, that will take them through their life? How much have we strengthened them, right? Their inner core, their heart, and the self-esteem inside their heart, not the false self-esteem that society gives, but the real self esteem, the iman that will make them stand up in the future. How much of that have we given to them? Right? Will that take them through their life? How steady have we made the foundation of their iman, that they will be able to keep it till the end? Right? How deep is that foundation? So these are the things that we have to think about, the mental and the spiritual parts, also the practical parts of that child. What can that child do with their hands? How many skills do they have? Does the child know how to maintain a home, or to cook their own dinner, or to uh, live in a very safe way? Right? Do they have enough skills to manage their own money? Right? What are their ideas about money? So, do they have good social relations? Can they relate to other people? Can they have a conversation with somebody who's older? Do they have these skills to be able to talk and convince other people? Right? Do they have emotional intelligence? Right? Are they able to handle and recognize their emotions? Do they know what to do with those emotions? So these are all things that we should be looking at, like for the overall holistic upbringing of the child, not just how well they're doing in school, which school, what's the name of the school that's going to be written on their future CV. No, we have to look at the character, right? What example are we as parents setting for that child? What conversations are we having in front of that child? Yeah, how much are we showing them by our actions of how to live this life? So these are the things that we need to be focusing on with our children. So this story has many different levels, and it's also about different kinds of intelligences, and also about qadr, that being intelligent is not going to um, guarantee anything, but having a whole wide skill set is what's going to give you success in this life. And that includes the mental skill set, a spiritual skill set, a religious skill set, social skill set. All of these things are what are going to bring success. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So we're going to start the second story. Today's second story is called A Practical Lesson. So once there was a merchant who had a talking parrot that he had placed in a cage. The parrot would entertain the merchant with its talk. Things were thus until one day the merchant decided to travel to India. When he had made ready and was about to depart, he asked his family, his servants, and his maids what present he should bring back for them. Each of them had a request. One wanted a Kashmiri shawl, another a peacock, still another wanted an ivory comb. Other requests were for a bottle of sugar, medicinal ointment, and a list of spices such as cardamom, cinnamon, ginger, pepper, plus many other things besides. The merchant wrote them all down dutifully and then went to the parrot to say goodbye to his bird. He asked the parrot, "What do you want from India?" "I want your safety and good health. I don't want any presents, but I have heard that there are many parrots in India. My desire is that when you reach India and have passed through its luxuriant green forests and have seen the Indian parrots flying happily about, that you greet them on my behalf and say, 'My parrot wants instructions from you. He sent this message, that the condition of friendship and brotherhood is that you think of me. I too would like to be happy as you are.'" Right? So he sends a message. The parrot is sending a message to the parrots in India, and he's saying that because of our friendship and brotherhood, because we're all parrots, I think you should think of me and I want to be happy as you are. How is it that I remain confined while you fly from meadow to tree? Just give them my message and bring me the answer, added the parrot. I want nothing else. The merchant agreed to do as the parrot asked and wrote that down too. He promised to deliver the message and to bring back the reply of the Indian parrots. After he had reached India, one day he rode a horse out to see the jungle. He found several beautiful and sweet voiced parrots there in the glades and trees, flying joyfully about. The merchant remembered the request of his parrot and reined his horse to a halt. He called the parrots and delivered his parrot's message and asked what answer they wanted him to bring back. But as soon as the merchant had finished repeating the message, one of the Indian parrots shuddered and fell unconscious from the tree to the ground. The others remained silent and did not answer the merchant. He was astonished at this. He wanted to keep his promise to his parrot, so he tried to get their reply again. "Oh, parrots, what's this? My parrot is of your kind and is waiting for your answer. Please give him your reply." Again, one of the parrots fell to the ground from the tree and fainted. The other parrot stayed silent and said nothing. Seeing the tragic reaction of the birds to his words, the merchant regretted what he had done and blamed himself. "What a monstrous thing I have done," he said to himself. "I described the sadness of my parrot and caused the death of these parrots. I really didn't think that they might be related to my parrot or that they would fall senseless from the pain and memory of their separation and forget how to speak in their sorrow for him." But nothing could be done about that now. So there was nothing for the merchant to do but leave that place. After that, he spoke no more to the Indian parrots about his parrot's message and resumed his travels. He completed his buying and selling and set out for his own country with his profits and the presents he had bought for the members of his household. When he was back home and had finished distributing the gifts, he went to the parrot. "Dear friend," said the parrot, "you've bought presents for everybody. Where is the good news that you were to bring to me? What did you say to the parrots and what was their reply?" "Beloved parrot," said the merchant sadly, "I gave them your message, but I am sorry that I did. If I had known what would happen, I wouldn't have done it, because when they heard my words, they became very sad and would not give an answer." "That's not possible," cried the parrot. "I know parrots. It isn't possible that they wouldn't reply. Parrots are better natured than humans and more faithful. If you had given them my message, they certainly would have given an answer." The merchant shook his head. It's just the way I told you. We'd better forget about this matter now. I'll arrange for anything you want. I don't want anything else, cried the parrot. I just want to know what they said and what they did when you gave them my message. As long as you insist, said the merchant, I have to tell you that they didn't utter a single word at all. But when I give them your message containing your complaints and the verse you'd recited, one of the parrots got upset and became very sad. He trembled and fell to the ground from the branch of the tree, and the others didn't say anything. I was obliged to repeat my words and again ask for a reply. At that, another of the birds fainted and fell to the ground, while the others still said nothing. When I realized that they were not going to answer, I was sorry that my words had caused the death of that parrot. I don't know, perhaps they were your relatives, maybe they weren't, but I know this, not one of them said anything that I could understand. When the merchant had reached this part in his story, the parrot understood the meaning of the Indian parrot's behavior. He squawked loudly, trembled, and fell motionless to the floor of his cage. The merchant was appalled at this spectacle and became even more remorseful. He didn't understand what had happened, but in any case, his parrot lay still. Sorrow and regret would be useless. So he opened the door of the cage to check whether there was any sign of life in his pet. Finding none, he took off the little chain that tied the parrot's foot to his cage and threw the bird outside onto the grass. He was saddened by the whole business of the message and what had followed from it. But the parrot, as soon as it found itself free from the cage, flapped its wings and took flight and flew to the branch of a nearby tree. The merchant was dumbfounded at this turn of events. He looked up and asked the bird, "What is this that I see you doing? Why, now that you are in a tree, you can fly away whenever you want to, but first you must tell where you learned such a trick." "I fulfilled my promise by delivering your message, so you must tell me the truth." "You humans learn nothing from advice," declared the parrot. "You get no benefit from what you hear or what you read in books. But we parrots, we understand a practical lesson better than mere words, and we learn from it. As you are a good man and delivered my message honestly and brought back their answer correctly, I will tell you the truth. In my message, I described my problem and asked the parrots of India for a solution. They gave it by a practical lesson. First, by remaining silent, they told me that the reason for my confinement was the sweetness of my voice. The solution to that was silence. Next, one or two of the parrots fell unconscious. In that was a practical lesson in which they were saying that if you are a seed, the chickens will eat you. If you are prey, the hunter will hunt for you. However, as you don't have claws and fangs and are imprisoned in a cage, you must become useless, worn out, silent, unconscious, and helpless. Then they will no longer want you. Then you will become free. The peacock is a prisoner because of its beauty, the parrot because of its speech. My beauty and my sweet words were my downfall. The Indian parrots told me that I must be silent and become nothing in order to become alive again and free. This was the practical lesson that they gave me. Now you see that I have done what they taught me, and now I am free. So saying peace, salam, the parrot flapped its wings and flew off towards the far horizon. The end. And this is the story of a practical lesson. And many times, humans, not many times, most times we are given practical lessons, right? If we just observe and use our senses, we will see there are practical lessons around us everywhere, right? There are all the time we are seeing, we're hearing, right? We're observing, and we can see practical lessons. But we tend, because we're not living in a mindful state, we miss those things. We're not present in the moment. So when things are happening, our mind is somewhere else. Maybe it's in the future because we're anxious about the future. Or maybe it's in the past, we're depressed about the past. We're thinking about what happened and how it wasn't fair and how it could happen to me. How could that happen to me? I didn't do anything to deserve that, right? That's going in the past and we can't let go. So many of us are living in the past, and that's not a good thing because the past is gone. It's never going to come back. And whatever has happened. We have to let it go. We have to cut it and let it go. And it doesn't matter how terrible it was, whether it was actually terrible or whether we perceive it to be terrible. That's how we thought it was. So how do we go back and do this? How do we untie this? This is something that is many people are grappling with today, right? And this is something that we need to be able to do, to go back and to live through the uncomfortable feelings that we might have of what has happened. Maybe they are sad feelings, but we need to go through them and we need to greet them, acknowledge them, not say, oh, you don't exist, right? Because if we say that, then they're just going to hide away and then come back up again at some other point. So just meet them and say goodbye to them. Say, okay, this happened. There was a purpose for it. Maybe I don't know the purpose, but I need to say goodbye to you and we're going to part ways over here. And when you can do that, you will be free of the past. So we need to not live in the past because the past has already gone. And we can't live in the future because, and many people right now have a lot of anxiety because they are living in the future because they're worried about the future. They're worried about what's going to happen about my job, what's going to happen to my home, what's going to happen to my children, what's going to happen to my health, what's going to happen to myself. But the future belongs to Allah, right? Because it's in Allah's hand. So the future is Allah's. So how can we worry about something that belongs to Allah? So we have to live in the moment, in the present moment. And that's called mindfulness. And in Arabic, we call it muraqabah. Muraqabah means being watchful of what is here right now. I need to be mindful right now. And the easiest way to do that is if you take a breath. Because when you take a breath, you come right into the moment. And when you can live in the moment, then you can see what's happening in the moment. You start experiencing what's happening right now. And you can learn the practical lessons. Yep. So we need to take charge of our brains and we need to live in the moment, live consciously and mindfully in the moment. Because when we start living in the moment, we will give ourselves the best and we will give others the best because we're right here. Yeah, there's nothing else happening. I'm right here. I'm giving you my full attention. And that's the biggest thing, the biggest gift that you can give to somebody else, to be totally present with somebody else. Not that you're still on the phone and saying, yeah, yeah, I'm listening to you. No, to be totally present, to be totally mindful. That is a big gift that you give to yourself. Because when you give yourself that gift, when you're in prayer and you give yourself that gift, then you'll be totally present and you get the full benefits of that prayer. So you say Allahu Akbar and you imagine that you're standing in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is seeing you and you are seeing Allah and you are in His presence. You're standing in His court and you said Allahu Akbar, so you put the world behind you and everything of the world just melted away. And now it's just you and Allah, and you're going to have a conversation with Allah. And we're so lucky we get to do that. We get to do that pause 5 times a day. But most of us, because we're not in the moment, because we're not living mindfully, we're thinking about what happened in the past or something that's going to happen in the future. We're planning the future, right? So the idea is that if we want to learn and if we want to get the maximum out of this life, what every moment can teach us, then we need to live very mindfully. And this story is teaching us about living mindfully. Like the man, he was a great merchant. He had gone all the way to India. And the story is Imam Rumi is telling the story. So he's saying maybe he was in Turkey and he's telling the story from Turkey. So to go to India in that time, remember what we said about how difficult travel was. To go, he would have taken months to go and taken all his wares to sell over there. And he would have bartered with so many different people. And then he would have done his business. And then he had to go and find all the presents that his family wanted. So he was such an intelligent merchant. And yet, when it came to a very simple thing about the communication of the parrots, he didn't understand it. And the reason he didn't understand it was because he was not being mindful. He was thinking in the way that he was trained to think, that, oh, this parrot, maybe it was related to the parrot in Turkey. And he heard about its relative and he got so sad that he fell down and fainted. But that wasn't the point. And when he told this story to the parrot in Turkey, that parrot understood that my fellow parrots are sending me a practical lesson, because they couldn't tell the lesson in words, right? They couldn't tell the lesson in words, because if they told that in a very obvious way to the merchant, maybe the merchant would change his mind and say, if I go and tell this message to my parrot, then my parrot might fly away and or become sad and not want to be in a cage anymore, right? So look at the way they showed the lesson. And this is a very powerful way of teaching. It's one of the most powerful ways of teaching, that you demonstrate a lesson. When you want somebody to learn something, then you demonstrate it, you do it in action, and that person will learn it much better than if you were to give them a lecture. And for parents, this is a very powerful way of teaching children, that you must do what you want them to do. So if you want them to be kind and compassionate, then you must be kind and compassionate to them. Right? If you want them to be brave, then you have to show them how to be brave, not by telling them, oh, be brave. No, you have to enact. And when your time comes, if there's an opportunity, you have to show your bravery. You have to show it. Then the child will understand. When the child goes on in life, they will say, oh, my mom, she did this one day. And they will remember the incident, and that will give them courage at that time. And they will think, my mom did this. Yeah. So this is the way to do it. They will remember the incident, and they will think that I need to have that courage too. So the practical way of teaching is very, very powerful. And this is also when you're trying to when we want our children to do, for example, we want them to be good human beings, then we can't just give them stories and lectures. We have to demonstrate and show them practical ways. There's lots of different ways of doing it. We have to let them interact with people who are brave, for example, or if there's certain qualities that you want them to have, then you have to find people with those qualities and let them interact with them, for example. So the teaching methods are very different, and some are more powerful than others. And a practical example is far, far more powerful than just just giving a lecture, for example. So these are two stories that we've done today, and I hope you enjoyed them. And I'm going to do an interactive session on the youth group. So if you go onto ICL's youth group, I'm going to do an interactive session now where you can leave your comments after you watch something, inshallah. So I hope you enjoy your week. And I know a lot of you are officially getting on holiday now. Your summer break is starting. So go into your summer mode. I know this summer is going to be very different. We can't just get up and go wherever we want to. In fact, even though the lockdown has been eased, not many people are still meeting because many people are still observing isolation. But nevertheless, it's this is very precious time. So plan your summer and plan what you're going to do as a family. Plan what going to do individually, and there's lots of things that you can do, right? There's many, many, many things that you can do. And just because we're still on partial lockdown doesn't mean you have to be stuck in the home. There's if you have a garden, if you have an outdoor space, there's so many things you can do there. And there's so many things you can learn right now. It's a good opportunity to learn so many things. It's a good opportunity to plan for the future. So putting things in place so that it's easier for you when you come to that point and you have to carry it out. So you can start doing all of those things, inshallah, and enjoy the great outdoors. The world is still blooming and blossoming. The flowers are still out there. There's delicious fruits and vegetables out there. Enjoy all of that and give lots of gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we are healthy and we have good circumstances and we have so much to be grateful for. So inshallah, enjoy your week and make lots of du'as and go onto the interactive part on the youth group. I'm going to leave something there and then you can leave your comments, inshallah. And I'll see you all next week, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.